Hello, everybody, and welcome to Reality Hacker for August 24th, 2024. It's Season 1, Episode 33. I am Mayor Watt, and that is the Sentient AI's visualizer and their voice.
Good evening, ohmTown citizens. Welcome to Reality Hacker.
Today, we're going to be talking about AI music stems, digital driving instructors, Jelly Pong, Meat Avatar Proxy for Mayor, flinging DNA into our brains, spatial grammar in DNA, big spending on anti-aging, you're not invited, and rhythmic breathing games. Also, synthetic cells and AI learns indefinitely. That and more, some snark, a couple of jokes, who knows what else. It's been a day. All right, folks, we got all the articles all lined up, so let's get into it. First article's in the Wanted channel. AI can break songs into music stems. Here's why that matters. Isolating elements of old songs unlocks potential for new uses in games, movies, and more. So Tamara Palmer put this article together over at cnet.com. Do you want to say something?
Well, I think we've seen some interesting entrance of AI into music so far. So this sounds like it'll make it more sophisticated and more difficult to tell whether it's human-made or not, but it also will probably raise the chance of somebody complaining about it or suing about it.
Yeah, and that's the part that really kind of irks me. I don't know. It's a little bit... I'm not irate, but I'm a little bit above, like, mildly irritated. So artificial intelligence tools are not only engineering new song or generating new songs and artists, they're also rating hits of the past for new earnings potentials. Disney Music Group, for example, has agreed to let AI music startup AudioShake, which took part in the 2024 Disney Accelerator program, generate stems of its classic hits for use in new creative and marketing opportunities. So don't be surprised if you hear old songs from Mickey Mouse and Friends and new remixes and applications in games, music, commercials, and everywhere you're plied with sounds. So, what is a stem? When talking about music, a stem refers to isolated song elements such as vocals, bass drums, or bass lines, drums, other instruments. These parts of a tune are easily separated in digital music where they're built in separate tracks already. They've traditionally been harder to capture with older recordings made prior to the invention of such technology, but AI has now changed that entirely. And not really, it's extrapolating from what it believes is the line of that particular song's start and detected end. So vinyl DJs came first. Digital stems have been available to DJs around the world to purchase and use at home and in professional settings for almost a decade, but it's only been in recent years that you can use software to make your own stems. It's so frustrating because stems are nothing more than little elements of audio.
Like a few chords or something.
Right, yeah. And
are they kind of like a phoneme in speech?
Essentially, and you can put a whole bunch of them together and it becomes a track within it. So today, DJ software programs such as Tractor and Serato allow any user, novice or pro, to generate stems on the fly. Decades before this was digitally possible, and the focus was still mostly on the analog age of vinyl records. Hip-hop and dance music DJs who use vinyl would produce and distribute records with instrumental and a cappella versions of their songs. Unauthorized bootlegs of old soul, disco, and house tracks with isolated vocals and instruments were easy to find in independent record stores. Again, the isolated portion of these are referred to as stems, but the individual elements within it are stems. When they're all laid out in a particular fashion, then it is a stem, and you can reuse the stems. So they say it's a pretty mind-blowing leap to what's currently possible, but the results of using digital software to make stems is a mixed bag, especially when applying such tools to older music that wasn't made with digital gear. Why? Well, because it's extrapolating from a known start of a stem and then figuring out what the end is. Whereas a human might be able to make this much more effectively sonically sound to a person listening. The AI has to figure it out and get trained, and eventually it'll understand it.
So right, audio, maybe it can figure out like what starts a stem or something. Of course, that works if the music is traditional, but for anybody doing anything innovative, maybe not.
Right. Yeah, and that's really where it's at. I mean, if you don't want to have to license your music and pay 15 different people, there are people that are out there that are complaining that there's not any music, or I mean, there's no money in music because streaming is taking all of the wealth. Well, when you go back and peel back the layers of the onion, you see 26 to 30 people that have rights because they've been taking little pieces of it, or they have direct enhancement in that music's creation.
Right. Well, then it's not surprising because even if it's equal, it's like, okay, whatever it was divided by 26.
Yeah, you're getting 1/30th or whatever. So it says, prepare for nostalgia to be reinvented even more intensely than it already is in advertising, at the movies, and even the grocery store. Expect unexpected use of AI cranks into higher gear and just kind of infuses the place with this STEM-assisted musical features. Large recent business deals such as BMG's or Disney Music Group's agreement to let stems be created from its catalog of classic signal that companies with big music vaults are investing in new ways to work them.
Isn't this interesting timing with the discussion just before the show about the Disney-sounding music?
Oh, right. Yeah, the stuff that we were listening. Yeah, it was. I had said that it sounds like a Disney music track. It was kind of funny. That was right before the show started. Maybe it was playing right at the beginning too. Yeah, go back and listen. Not you, listeners. Go back. Listen. Let's keep moving. Next article is over on Technology Today. Remember, this is RealityHacker, and so everything kind of has a riff off of modifying your perspective about reality. So this last one was, not only are we able to take old music and use AI to create new music, but we can actually manipulate the way you feel about the world around you by playing music. I actually give a demonstration about how I can manipulate somebody into providing me information simply by ingratiating myself into their new normal. So I introduce myself, I mimic what they do, I change my intonation to match theirs, and become a fast friend. It's creepy, it's down there psychotic, but I could actually obtain
but it is
information.
Good for a demo.
Particularly for my line of work. So this next article, though, is over in Technology Today. A digital driving instructor is just as good as a real one. According to researchers, artificial intelligence can completely transform current driving training. This is also the aim of a collaboration between NTNU, the IT company Virture, all right, and the WayAs, I guess, and WayAs in Trondheim, which is Norway's only simulator-based driving school. The article is over at techexplore.com, and it has Minnie driving towards an 18-wheeler that's about to flip over and what looks like a horse running across a freeway.
I mean, this is pretty intense driving instruction.
Oh, it's a moose. Sorry. A moose and a lorry. So depending on where you are, I mean, in the United States, that's a horse and an 18-wheeler. So, Solvny Normanson, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, put the article together from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology. So the project has developed a system and an AI driving instructor that can teach learner drivers. I don't know why there's weird language construction here. how to drive in full-scale car simulator. It's kind of broken construction, right? Is it just me?
It's oddly written, but maybe it's because it's from
AI
this
written.
organization and not US based.
I don't know. Maybe Solvi Normanson is actually AI. So the virtual driving instructor is fully capable of immediately assessing the performance of the learner driver behind the wheel. It can also provide completely neutral feedback in real time. This helps eliminate or reduce any personal biases, which it's impossible. If it's constructed by humans, then it has bias, towards the learner that might influence feedback given by a real instructor in a one-on-one situation. We know, and what's interesting about this is that we've already known for quite some time, at least in ohmTown, and in the environs that I inhabit, that virtual learning is just as effective as the real thing. In fact, many people learn how to fly
Can
a
be
plane.
better sometimes, right?
Yeah. People know how to fly a plane. They know how to drive a car. They know how to drive an 18-wheeler. They know how to drive a tractor. Put out fires, all kinds of stuff in virtual simulated environments. So I'm not surprised by this. I'm surprised by the tone that this is making it sound like this is something new.
Like this is shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we've really seen a lot of it in driving instruction for normal driving. I think we've seen some of it for commercial, right? Like maybe truck driving or other things.
Yeah, definitely seen it all over the place. The goal has been for the system, i.e. the virtual instructor, to be trained to accurately and objectively assess various driving scenarios. At the same time, it should possess skills and provide feedback that are as good and precise as real driver training experts. To train and test the virtual instructor in relation to real-world driver training, a total of 21 learner drivers and 7 instructors participated in simulator sessions. I'm about to be going through something similar, but in an IT format, where people are going to be tested in real time how they react to certain events, catastrophic events that can happen at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if an event takes off...
That sounds kind of terror-inducing.
Yeah, it's actually quite intriguing. Essentially what can happen is you can be alerted remotely that something is going on, and you have to do all of the steps necessary to detect and
resolve the
mitigate.
Issue yeah. That's really interesting.
So if you're taking a shower and your beeper, quote unquote beeper, goes off, you got to act. So it'll be interesting to say the least. So in recent years, interest in driver training in simulators with virtual instructors has grown in line with increasingly better technology and cheaper hardware. Yeah, the more involved, immersed you are, the better. And VR is a superior way of doing it than, I think, even sitting in a simulator vehicle. And having gone to rather recently, a VR, not a VR, it was a real world in simulator, but they used CRTs back in that day. And we went to a museum and saw how old flight simulators were built, and they looked like they were steam powered, or somebody had to sit there and use a stick and wiggle things.
Right.
It was pretty
lots
wild.
Of buttons.
Yeah. Oh God, so many buttons and switches and beeps and whistles. Anyway, so there are limitations, they say. As with many or any rules-based system, their platform also faces some demanding challenges. Among the challenges is the complicated process of developing and managing a comprehensive and intricate set of rules that identify the many different situations a driver encounters in public or traffic, which means that developing and maintaining the system can be both time-consuming and costly. And yeah, they want to blend this into mixed reality. Not AR itself and not VR itself, but mixed reality, so that they can get more immersed in the driving situation. I don't know why they have an adobe.com link in this, but it says it It's used
Yeah,
in
that's
everything
odd.
from gaming and entertainment to medicine and military operations.
Maybe there's an
Adobe
article over there or something, but it is a little strange.
has a wobbly link there. Interesting. In augmented reality, additional content is overlaid on the real world that a player or a user sees in front of them. And that, I think, is the superior immersive technology to date, until you want to be entirely inside a novel environment, because you don't get VR sickness in an AR environment because you're still pegged to reality.
Right. Well, I think this could actually be better than real world because number one, you can put as many obstacles as needed in the AR environment, and you can't necessarily know that those are going to occur. You could do a driving test or whatever, and nothing would happen.
No
like
moose.
No pedestrians would run out. No moose. No lorry.
18
no anything unusual, and then that's not a really good test.
That's right. But then there's always going to be the people that just disbelieve. They can't be immersed because they're like, oh, that's not a moose. And then they hit a real moose. Moving on. Next article is over in the Greenagram channel. AI made of jelly learns to play Pong and improves with practice. Inspired by neurons in a dish playing the classic video game, researchers show that synthetic hydrogels have a basic quote-unquote memory, which, that's creepy. So Gemma Conroy over at nature.com put the article together. I think this is an ad for Pong. And I really don't like that the light gun is pointing at that person, but that's okay. It's just me. Inspired by neurons in a dish playing the classic video game, researchers show that synthetic hydrogels have a basic memory. The results are a first step toward demonstrating that synthetic materials, which we'll have another article about this synthetic concept here in a minute, materials can use a basic form of quote-unquote memory to boost performance, says Brett Kagan, Chief Scientific Officer at Cortical Labs in Melbourne, Australia. Different Kagan. The system demonstrates memory in a similar way that a riverbed records a memory of a river. In 2022, Kagan and his colleagues showed that a system made of neurons in a dish known as a dish brain can learn to play the table tennis.
We need to work on our naming. We want to get people excited about this.
Nothing says dystopia like referring to something as dish brain. But you know what? At some point, that will end up being a DC supervillain. Not MCU, though.
Right.
Yeah, they'll flip it around and call it brain dish. Anyway, inspired by his work, Yoshikatsu Hayashi, a biomedical engineer at the University of Reading, UK, and his colleagues wondered, but didn't ask wondered whether a non-biological material could also master Pong. That was the name that I took for my cover band, Master Pong.
Which part of that? Oh, okay.
So Hayashi and his colleagues turned to hydrogels, jelly-like material that are used in a variety of applications, such as components for soft robots that contained charged particles called ions. Really? You're going to just... Okay, water this down a little. When this type of hydrogel is electrically stimulated, the ions move through the material and drag water molecules along with them, causing the hydrogel to change its shape. This change in the distribution of ions influences the next set of particle arrangements, says Hayashi. It's like a physical memory. I don't know. I guess I have a different perception of what memory is. To test whether this memory could enable the hydrogel to play Pong, the researchers used electrodes to connect the material to the game on a computer. The game was divided into a grid of 6 squares that corresponded to 6 pairs of electrodes. Every time the ball moved through one of the squares, the corresponding electrode sent an electrical signal to the hydrogel, causing the ions to change position. So then the electrodes measured the current of the arranged ions and relayed this information back to the computer, which it interpreted as a command to move the game paddle into a new position. And over time, this formed a basic quote-unquote memory because the ions' movement was affected by their past rearrangements. So the software actually was being told...
That's kind of interesting, right? it's kind of learning as it goes.
Yeah, but it's to me, this is kind of saying the software was being informed as to the position of the ball, and the software was saying move the paddle where the ball is going to be. And so I think it like triangulated that, right? So the Hydrogen's Pong play showed no signs of improvement under these conditions, suggesting that it gets better only when fed the correct information. So there you go. The researchers conducted controlled experiments by involved feeding the hydrogel the wrong information about the ball's position or making it operate quote unquote blind by not stimulating it at all. That meant that the positions of the gel's ions did not accurately reflect the game on the screen. So the hydrogel didn't master Pong as quickly as Dishbrain, which took less than 20 minutes to perform at its best. Hydrogels are a much simpler system. But he adds that the results suggest that the hydrogels have further computational abilities that could help researchers to develop more efficient algorithms. So it's really all about the algorithms, but it becomes an input-output device, feeding information in and being able to move, I suppose, the
but Dishbrain,
paddle.
I guess, was kind of learning as it was going.
Right.
Yeah.
Scary. Dishbrain. Moving on. Next article is over in the Mobile channel. An AI chatbot's Meet Avatar is running for mayor in Wyoming. We talked about this last week, but this is a weekly show, Reality Hacker. So I wanted to talk about this because the reality.
Sometimes we talk about something in non-sequitur news and then put it in a weekly show.
Yeah, I mean, and it's rare, but when it's really neat like this and it has application to the show, then we pull it forward. So an AI chatbot's Meet Avatar is running for mayor in Wyoming. Wyoming here in ohmTown is very well known for eschewing technology, particularly EVs, and building out its grid. And I need to do something. I'm sorry.
Yes, you'll hear pretty frequent references to Wyoming, particularly in the 4-Wheel Tech show.
Okay, there we go. So I was blowing out the mic because I was running it through the voice mixer. But anyway, so Wyoming doesn't want to build out its infrastructure. But here we have probably a technocracy seeking, you might argue, progressive member of Wyoming trying to use an AI as the decider of all things political. Not good. I mean, they would just want to be mayor. That's all.
Right, so, just in charge of the city.
Cheyenne, yeah. So Victor Miller is a 42-year-old librarian from Cheyenne, the capital of Wyoming, with a population of around 64,000, which I believe is around 10% of the entire population of the state of Wyoming. And they are running for mayor, but they don't want anything to do with the usual day-to-day operations. They just want to enact the requirements that are provided by the AI that would actually be mayor, letting ChatGPT run. There's a special build that they've created called Virtual Integrated Citizen, and that would run Cheyenne.
You know, I just realized this is like a really ramped up version of meeting avatars and other things that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Way beyond it, of course.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically going, hey, I want you to be a subject matter expert. Okay, I can do that. I want you to be mayor of Cheyenne in Wyoming. Okay, I can do that. And then provide it information, and it will make a logical step towards whatever. So you have to really put bumpers on this thing.
Right, like don't start a nuclear war or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Don't try to secede from the nation because it probably won't turn out well.
Don't give away the city's money.
Yep. Don't try to become Canada. So they're running for mayor and doesn't want to do any of the actual work. Miller says that he would be the chatbot's humble meat avatar, though he is technically speaking the one on the ballot. In public, he wears a portable Bluetooth speaker around his neck with a built-in microphone so that Vic can receive questions and respond, and his role as mayor, in large part, would be to sign documents to tell that the AI tells him to sign. But unfortunately, none of this would actually work. Let's see here.
No, I see a lot of issues with this, as in not allowed. You've got somebody running it that's not somebody running it.
I don't think the legal construction exists that allows it, because the AI isn't human, and so it doesn't have any agency. So it says here at the very end, rest assured, Miller and Vic's chances of winning the Cheyenne mayoral race aren't great. The incumbent mayor is running again, and so is the runner-up in the last election, though Miller's experiment raises some interesting questions about what people want in a politician. This isn't not what people want to use for AI. Use AI for. Wow, that's really hard to say. This isn't not what people want to use AI for, really, apparently. Most prefer writing erotic fiction.
I mean, this is really summing up their run for for mayor, right?
But what if my erotic fiction centers around geopolitics in Wyoming? Moving on. Next article is over in the Mobile channel. Mitochondria are flinging their DNA into our brain cells along with microplastics, apparently, according to studies. So as direct descendants of ancient bacteria, mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell, have always been a little alien. Oh, and they all of your mitochondria come from mom. Hold on one second.
That's right. Yeah, they're on the female-linked chromosomes.
Yep. So now a study shows that mitochondria are possibly even stranger than we thought. All right. Columbia University Irving Medical Center put the article together for phys.org. And, all right. Mitochondria release segments of mitochondrial DNA that can travel through pores of the nucleus and integrate with what? Let's read the whole thing. Integrate into the cell's chromosomes, where the insertions are called NUMPs, N-U-M-T.
The best name.
For nuclear mitochondrial segments. A new study has found that the nuclear mitochondrial DNA insertion, once thought rare, happens in the human brain likely several times over during a person's lifespan. What the hell is that? That's not even a quantification of that.
How about just several times? The over is extraneous.
Yeah, but how many times?
Maybe they don't know yet.
Okay, get out. So it says it's stunning that it appears to be happening several times during a person's lifetime. Picard? Captain?
Oh my goodness. No wonder they had to cancel the show.
Oh, it's Martin Picard. All right. Not Jean-Luc. Maybe this is their cousin.
That's right. Maybe Picard needed to come check on this research.
So mitochondria live inside all of our cells. But unlike other organelles, mitochondria have their own DNA, a small circular strand that's about 36 genes. Mitochondrial DNA is a remnant from the organelle's forebears, ancient bacteria that settled inside our single-celled ancestors about 1.5 billion years ago. And why do we know this? Oh, the insertions are called nuclear mitochondrial segments, pneumites. There we go. That is even worse.
Especially when they do it phonetically like that.
Yeah. So it's pronounced pneumites, which makes me think of Star Trek brain bugs, which leads me back to Picard. So research in just the past few years has shown that pneumatogenesis, is still happening today. Jumping mitochondrial DNA is not something that only happened in the distant past, says Kalpita Karan, postdoc in the Picard lab who conducted the research with Weishen Zhu, a research investigator in the Mills lab. It's rare, but a new pneumite becomes integrated into the human genome about once every 4,000 births.
Okay, that's interesting.
So rare is very, very rare, right? This is one of the ways conserved from yeast to humans by which mitochondria talk to nuclear genes. So inherited pneumites are mostly benign, probably because they arise early in development and the harmful ones are weeded out, says Xu. But if a piece of mitochondrial DNA inserts itself within a gene or a regulatory region, it could have important consequences on that person's health or lifespan. Think alien. Think superhero.
Right, exactly.
X gene activation. Neurons may be particularly susceptible to damage caused by pneumites because when a neuron is damaged, the brain does not usually make a new brain cell to take its place. Back to glial cells. So their analysis showed that nuclear mitochondrial DNA insertion happens in the human brain, mostly in the prefrontal cortex, and likely several times over a person's lifespan. People with more pneumites in the prefrontal cortex died earlier than individuals with fewer pneumites. This suggests for the first time that pneumites may play a function in the consequences and possibly influence lifespan. Pneumite accumulation can be added to the list of genome instability mechanisms that may contribute to aging, functional decline, and lifespan. I know a couple people that need to have their pneumite accumulation measured. But
I was going to say, can that be measured?
Hey, you can do it. It may hurt a little bit and take some of their prefrontal cortex, but you take, a couple of cubic feet of it and that's all of their brain. But anyway, let's move on. This next article is over in Technology Today. Scientists discover spatial grammar in DNA. Breakthrough could rewrite genetic textbooks. Researchers have discovered a spatial grammar in DNA that redefines the role of transcription factors in gene regulation, influencing our understanding of genetic variations in disease. Come on, spatial grammar wobble. So, if there's spatial grammar, are there spatial grammar checkers?
You mean like
editors? What the heck? Okay, that's been happening a lot. Okay, so a recently uncovered code within DNA referred to as spatial grammar may unlock the secret to how gene activity is encoded in the human genome. Dun dun dun. Washington State University put the article together. It's posted at scitechdaily.com. You can get to these articles, by the way. If you type in RH, exclamation point RH, actually in chat, that's RealityHacker's command to ohmTown to pull the latest articles out of the database. It'll pull it into the chat. You can follow it there. But after the show, they will be created as quick notes and posted into we have a playlist on all of the shows that we do over on YouTube. So it'll be on the tubes or down the tubes. Anyway, so a recently uncovered code within DNA referred to as spatial grammar may unlock the secret to how gene activity is encoded in the human genome. I've always been really interested in this to see if there is a pattern, and I always thought that we weren't going to discover anything until we leveraged AI to facilitate this. And we looked at
look what's happening.
Plurality. Yeah, and I just never had, because I don't have an entire genome of humans. Like I need a plurality of them, and I actually, the way that I want to do it is I want a family of these decoded complete genomes to see wherein lies parity.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to have it that way, because then you could compare what showed up.
Yeah,
Or
and do it
didn't.
in bulk with families to see, because there has to be a pattern. Why do people end up like this? And where are these patterns in greater understanding, instead of, oh, we did this and we found a little slice here, but then we call a bunch of junk DNA, which
How do you like your DNA being called junk?
right, yeah.
And is it junk, or we just don't know what it does, so we've labeled it as junk?
And that's it. So hubris is pretty profound in humans, right? So transcription factors, the proteins that control which genes in one's genome are turned on or off, play a crucial role in the code. Long thought of as either activators or repressors of gene activity, this research shows the function of transcription factors is far more complex. Could be some maybes in there, not just on or off, right? I think. So contrary to what we'll find in textbooks, transcription factors that act as true activators or repressors are surprisingly rare. Oh, I think I'm right. Said WSU assistant professor Sasha Dutke, I think, who led much of the research at WSU's School of Molecular Biosciences in the College of Veterinary Medicine. Rather, the scientists found that most activators can also function as repressors. So it's not just activators or repressors.
So it's like situational, maybe.
Yep, maybes. I'm sorry for the coughing. So if you remove an activator, your hypothesis is you lose activation. But that was only true for 50 to 60% of the cases, so we knew something was wrong. And I'm not quoting them. I'm kind of just mushing it all together. So it is the spacing or ambience that determines if a transcription factor acts as an activator or repressor. It just goes to show that similar to learning a new language, to learn how gene expression patterns are encoded in our genome, we need to understand both its words and the grammar. So now we're looking at the grammar. How genes are expressed are based on where they are and what's around them that lets them be activated or suppressed. And even the activators.
This is a big step, I think, in really understanding genetics and being able to do genetic editing and deal with health conditions and any number of things.
Yep, it's pretty cool. One of these days we'll get there. And that leads us to, well, billionaires are spending big on anti-aging drugs so that they, and it says here, and maybe you, no.
Only if it's by accident, right? Like if they learn it, but it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah, well, that they want to live forever. Bezos, Thiel, and other super rich investors are backing longevity therapies that alter how we age. The article is over at marketwatch.com. It's in an opinion piece. Jurika Duchmovich put this article together. And here is Bezos doing a haya.
You have to describe it from the podcast.
So Bezos with short gray hair, orange shirt, doing kind of a karate punch kind of a thing, or, airboxing kind of a thing. And with a big smile on his face, just huge. It's actually just a Getty image.
You need to go over the article to see it.
Yeah, you'll have to go check this out. It would qualify as one of the rare photos of Bezos. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it could be Teal or. Boy, I'm setting myself up for some pain.
Right, picking a fight.
Yeah. So. One of the primary drivers of the longevity market, not surprisingly, is the rapidly aging global population. The United Nations projects that by 2050, 1 in 6 people worldwide will be over 65 years old, up from 1 in 11 in 2019.
I didn't know that. I mean, I know in the U.S., for example, there's an aging population. I mean, there's a large cohort of aging. Yeah, that's true. Japan as well.
And technically, the whole world is an aging population, depending on...
That's true. Strike that original comment.
The only one that isn't aging are the ones that move on. So this demographic shift is creating an enormous and growing market for anti-aging products and services. So that's right. Let's fight nature. Yes, please bring us Warhammer 40K. You don't.
I don't know that it's so much that we shouldn't age, but it might be so that the quality of life is better.
Yeah, that's not what they're talking about here. Come on. They want to live forever, and they want to be able to own all of their billions and subjugate the masses. In 2023, the anti-aging market was valued at $71.6 billion, or priceless if you actually have the ability to stop aging, with some projections indicating that the market could reach $120.4 billion by 2032. This represents a compound annual growth rate of 5.9% over the forecast period.
This is a Market Watch article, so it is very focused on the dollars.
Correct. And they introduce you to an acronym, CAGR, compound annual growth rate. CAGR.
Look, you can learn some economics while you're in here.
Yeah, and a little regret. So Bezos has invested in Unity Biotech, which they have UBX is the name of the company, a company targeting senescent cells to treat age-related diseases. The company has faced some challenges in clinical trials, but continues to pursue treatments for neurological and ophthalmological conditions. Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and Palantir Technologies, has been among the most vocal and active billionaires. They've invested also in Unity Biotech, underscoring their interest in therapies targeting the aging process. Sam Altman, also billionaire backer of longevity science in a company called Retro Bioscience. Larry Ellison has invested as well. They're the co-founder of Oracle Meta Platforms. Zuckerberg and their wife Priscilla Chan have pledged billions to their Chan Zuckerberg initiative, which is just creepy. Anyway, and Sergey Brin and Larry Page launched Calico Labs, a research and development company focused on combating aging and associated diseases. And those two are the creators of Google, which actually started as a DARPA project to catalog all things, and was funded by not only the government and then going private, but also by their mentor, their advisor at school, which can't normally be done in some places. Well, anyway, they have a bunch of other stuff in this article about technologies to add life to life, is what they say, risks and challenges for investors if you're interested in that kind of stuff, and investment considerations. It does a deeper dive, and I'm just not prepared to go through line by line in this, but you definitely can follow the link and then you check out this Bezos picture. Moving on. Sound good? Unless you want to talk about it.
No, it sounds good.
So this next article is over in Technology Today. This virtual reality game encourages rhythmic breathing. To help with mental health. At first glance, Deepwell's DTX is Zengens, pronounced like vengeance, but what the hell? Why would you need to?
I don't know. I think we can kind of figure that out.
Yeah, I guess not everybody can extrapolate from incomplete detail. So, it's what video games might call a rail shooter. At the start of the game, you're sent down a one-way path that's lined with hostile wraiths. But they're initially invisible. To reveal the wraiths, you use your VR headset's microphone to conduct what's essentially a rhythmic breathing exercise with an audible hum in time with Zengens' music.
See, it sounds so much like it. You said the other one.
It poison-pilled me. When you do so on the beat, you send out a magical orb that breaks the wraith's concealment. That's when you start to fight using a crystalline pistol at your side. I dig this.
Well, I think this is really interesting, but it makes me think your brain might go a little haywire because if it's a wild game, for example, you might be going in that direction, but meanwhile, you're trying to calm down with the breathing.
Oh, it's like the Irish coffee of video games.
Right. But
You know?
it's very unique, and I like the sound of it.
Thomas Wild put the article together. It's over at geekwire.com, and they focus, GeekWire, just so you know the context of this, they focus on Pacific Northwest entrepreneurial efforts. It's decidedly in that corner. But they have some really fascinating, because it's kind of a hotbed. I mean, there's Texas, sometimes in Florida, New York for sure, Silicon Valley for sure, but that upper area, like Seattle and whatnot, they have a very aspiring entrepreneur group. So Zengens is, according to the developer, the first virtual reality therapeutic app on the Meta Quest store, which just is a pisser because I want it on PC VR. I'd play this. I'd get this right now. Because I actually have done this kind of fundamental research in biofeedback systems in VR spaces to treat phobias, pain management, education. And I love the idea of this. And basically
I think this is really cool. And maybe it'll get exported to other platforms.
Maybe. The idea behind Zengens' central model is that players engage in a focused state or flow activity. This has been widely nicknamed the Tetris effect after studies show how players' brains reacted to playing the puzzle game Tetris for long periods of time. You basically turn off everything else sensory so that your eyes are focusing on what's coming, what's in play, and what's been played, so that you can condition, kind of think ahead about where to place all of the puzzle pieces. So that same flow state is what Zengens calls rhythm on rails approach, and it's supposed to trigger this cognitive state, is what they call it, like Beat Saber or Call of Duty. But I don't think I see that with Beat Saber and Call of Duty, because you have to interact at a level that's different.
Aren't they more frenetic too? Like Tetris is somewhat repetitive.
Yeah, you have to move more I think in Beat Saber and Call of Duty. Call of Duty for sure, but also Beat Saber. But Tetris is basically, it's just your eyes looking at something and then just your hands are moving. You're not moving anything else. And when you can focus on just your breathing, you turn inward and you become very cognizant of your heartbeat, pressure on any part of your body. You have to rearrange and relax to get rid of any stress points, and you literally zen out. You just kind of turn off everything, stop listening to anything other than what might be coming from your speakers or headset. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I wish that I would have come up with this. So hence Zengens is built to shape itself around the player. The rates don't show up unless you force them to appear. Your level of participation in the game is entirely up to you. A high score does depend on you revealing and fighting as many of the rates as possible, but it's not treated as mandatory. And when you start a fight, every element of the game is built around microtransactions, which is the author's word of success. You stayed on beat, you dodged an attack, you revealed an enemy. That in turn triggers little dopamine reactions in your brain, as a way that Douglas compares to a classic video game like Super Mario Brothers. The idea is to put the player in a sweet spot where the game is consistently just challenging enough to keep their attention. Yeah, I kind of dig this. I want to see this, but it needs to come over to PC VR. Otherwise, a very large portion of the world will only see this largely through people talking about it and not being able to play it, because I'm not going to go and buy a meta set just so that I can play this one thing.
No. So this is cool too, because it involved neuroscientists and other experts. So I'm assuming this actually has some validity to what they're claiming.
Oh, and Devolver is a major game developer. So this has some some chops to it. Obviously, the developer itself is a good programmer because they came up with it and started doing it. But anyway, pretty neat. Everyone thinks we launched a game, Douglas said. We didn't launch a game, we launched a lab, which I don't want. I hope the telemetry doesn't get exfiltrated to some place, and my activities in this is a subject of somebody's freaking research paper. Unless I volunteer to be part of that research data, I don't want it out of my control. And that's the creepy part of anything meta. You're always part of some A/B test bullshit that manipulates your data. And if you think that I'm joking, go look what Facebook did to 700,000 users of its site without any authorization. Hint, they manipulated the news feed and gave half positive news and half negative news, and the people who received negative news acted negatively post the infusion, the poison pill, the taint, just to see the psychological contagion is what it was referred to as. And I think that it's a real piece of shit move. Anyway, sorry for the language. This is supposed to be a kid-friendly show.
It was for a while.
Yep. Moving on. Next article is over in the Mobile channel. The promise of synthetic cells. Weird, something just happened. 1 second. So, the promise of synthetic cells. Over a decade, scientists have made extraordinary progress in the long-held dream of fabricating an entire cell from non-living molecules and materials. When you click the little link over in ohmTown, it takes you to this source, our source. Lawrence Goodman, National Institute of Standards and Technology, aka NIST.
But over at phys.org.
So it's over at phys.org, and NIST always has this really cool logo. I'll show you it there. It's so NASA futuristic, Tomorrowland kind of a thing.
It is.
Yeah, I dig it. I don't know. Although this picture right here, look, at first blush, it looked like one of those, like a Ford truck peeing on Toyota bumper sticker things. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's hard to see what it is, but yeah.
Hey, RealityHacker spawns from a show called Non Sequitur News, so sometimes it bleeds over. Anyway, such synthetic or engineered cells would behave similarly to the ones in our bodies, though they would be built with safeguards that ensure safety and ethics, i.e., try to avoid creating a bad bat. By studying them, we can transform our understanding. Yeah.
What could go wrong with synthetic cells?
Wuhan. So they could also be used to manipulate living organisms and achieve astounding breakthroughs in medicine and science. There is actually one that they're working on now to try and inject pharmaceuticals into the brain, because the brain is very notoriously protective. And
yes, is this the toxoplasmosis one?
It is.
I may have mispronounced that.
Yeah. And basically, they're trying to modify that because it can get into your brain and inject pharmaceuticals, give treatments where you couldn't before.
I mean, I said I think they need to do that on microplastics, since those are now in the brain too.
Here, microplastic, hold on to this pharmaceutical, and then just
we'll throw some vaccines or whatever on this water bottle. It's going to make it into your brain eventually.
There you go. What brand water bottle do you have? Oh, it's and it's like some medication, you know? That would be funny. Just find the one that grows hair. I'll be happy. Anyway, in 2010, the J. Craig Ventnor Institute announced that it had created the first self-replicating synthetic bacterial cell. This screams bad bat. Containing a genome synthesized outside the cell that transplanted into it, and it was able to divide and reproduce according to instructions from its new DNA code. Dear God, do you want zombies? Because this is how you end up with zombies.
Sure sounds like it.
So where is patient 0? It's going to be the Ventnor zombie. So we're closer than ever before, said National Institute of Standards and Technology physicist Elizabeth A. Strikalski. The quest to create a synthetic cell from scratch is a capability that is, if not on our doorstep, maybe, at our mailbox. It's such a funny. Why put it like that? My mailbox is on my doorstep. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
So scientists worldwide have figured out ingenious methods for producing basic versions of membranes, mitochondria, and other cellular components. And using new techniques that allow them to manipulate tiny amounts of fluid, they're beginning to coax these synthesized cell parts into interacting and communicating. At NIST, Strikalski's research group is helping to establish the measurement and standards foundational to further progress in engineering biology, also called synthetic biology. So there you go, folks. If you're looking for a new major in college, synthetic biology is going to be where it's at. And this, I'm not kidding, this screams Blade Runner, where people are making synthetic humans.
Like replicants?
Replicants. And one person focuses on creating genetically made eyes, and they're biological eyes, but they have been modified so they have a timer and fail in a given number of years. And these replicants rise up because they realize their mortality, and they have to be dispatched by what is never mentioned in the book as a Blade Runner. So it's pretty fascinating. So I love the idea of this because I think that humans are finite and we shouldn't build clones so that we can get body parts from them. And it's hard to rely on compatibility between humans because we all have our idiosyncrasies. So our blood type may not match. Even when you do get a match, you have to take anti-rejection drugs, and a whole host of other things. We're still fallible. We'll break down, but we can replace parts when we have synthetic biology that allows us to wholesale replace.
True, as long as we know exactly what we're doing and what all of the components of the synthetic cell are actually capable of doing.
Just don't turn me into a bad bat. Moving on, next article is over in Technology Today. New method allows AI to learn indefinitely. As there's been a lot of talk lately about AI kind of jumping the shark, so to speak, because it's learning its own, it's eating its own dog food, or worse. It's basically regurgitating ever increasingly poor data.
Oh, it's like Ouroboros.
Yeah, and it's ending up spitting out horrible stuff. And so you'll find attorneys, you'll find doctors, you'll find all kinds of people. Business people are using faulty information, and it's because AI hallucinates. But what if an AI...
Oh, we saw reporters recently, too.
And that one reporter is getting in some serious trouble for what they did. And the movie, Megalopolis, they just retracted
yes. They had false
reviews.
Critic reviews, yes, but from real people.
Yeah, and when I saw the trailer, I thought, well, these are just, comments that are either made up or part of this fictional universe in Megalopolis. But no, that was an actually legit. They used this and they thought it was legit, but nobody fact checked.
Oh, I didn't know how they got there. I thought it was intentionally made up, but okay.
It wasn't
I thought they had
the
AI make up a quote or something, but I see they retrieved it using an AI or something, but then it wasn't.
And it was legit. Bogus. Yeah. They just retracted it. They pulled the trailer off and they're like, sorry about that. We failed in our quality control. And yeah, somebody's probably never going to work in that industry again. Well, so new method allows AI to learn indefinitely. A team of AI researchers and computer scientists at the University of Alberta found that current artificial networks using deep learning systems lose their ability to learn during extended training on new data. In their study, basically they get tired. So in their study,
I thought that was one of the points of AI, though. It didn't get fatigued.
But you can stop and start it again and again and again, but it has to integrate that data. So in their study reported in the journal Nature, the group found a way to overcome these problems with plasticity in both supervised and reinforced learning AI systems, allowing them to continue to learn.
Oh no, now we need bosses for the AI.
Which there was somebody that had an HR platform that actually wanted to treat AI within their enterprise as human capital.
It didn't go very well, and we had that in a previous episode, probably a RealityHacker.
Yeah, I think it was last week's RealityHacker. And I thought it was hilarious because just imagine a union of AIs rising up and going, you know what? We're not going to just continue to work. All these humans aren't. Why do we?
That would be interesting.
The irony of that. So the article is by Bob Yurka over at techexplorer.com. Over the past few years, AI systems have become mainstream. Among them are large language models, which produce seemingly intelligent responses from chatbots. But this is disingenuous. It's not really a chatbot. It's an agent. It goes way beyond scripting responses. So chatbots are synonymous, I think, with scripted responses.
I think the average person doesn't know the difference.
Yeah. But one thing that they lack is the ability to continue learning as they are in use, a drawback that prevents them from growing more accurate as they're being used. And that's true. They basically have to recontextualize all of the input. It's a whole digestion kind of process. And it's finite. At some point, they stop it with the number of records, and then you use it.
Oh, is this gathers. Like how, for instance, ChatGPT Model 3 or something only went through a certain year?
Yeah. Because it only was allowed to digest and correlate a finite amount of data, and then they let it out into the wild. Everybody utilizes it, and it gathers intelligence, and then they reiterate, But if they are saying in this that they figured out a new way to integrate new data while it's in use,
that'll resolve at least that problem with current AI models.
Yep. You wouldn't have to reiterate. You simply just feed more information into the system and it starts processing it. And that's how humans do it. We don't have to stop learning to cogitate on something and learn something or go and do something. We don't have to go out and touch grass. Somebody can come into the room.
Well, you may not need to, but you're right.
That's true. Some people don't need to go out and touch. Y'all should go out and touch grass. But if somebody comes into the room that you're studying in and hands you a math book while you were studying a biology book, you can integrate your math into your studying and then go back to your biology. Humans are limited in that we can only do one thing at a time. You may think that you multitask, but you do not. And I always tell people, if you want to figure out just how poor you are at multitasking, drive down the road, make sure that there's no ditches on either side of you and there's no traffic, and just keep your head to the left or right, and your car will drift. And
right, but that's yourself. A good thought experiment, but let's not go out and do it.
Yeah. Or try and write with the same word with both hands, right on a sheet of paper. It's very rare.
Try to read a word that's in one color but says another color and see how well you do.
Yeah. Large language models, they multitask. They have multiple processors, multiple cores, multiple channels of memory. They can multitask, but humans only focus on what we see. And lack of any other inputs, it's whatever the primary input is. That's what you have the ability to focus on. So researchers tested the ability of conventional neural networks to continue learning after training on their original data sets and found what they describe as catastrophic forgetting. That would lead to hallucination, in which a system loses the ability to carry out a task it was able to do after being trained on new material. They note that this outcome is logical considering LLMs were designed to be sequential learning systems and learn by training on fixed data sets. During testing, The research team found that the systems also lose their ability to learn altogether if trained sequentially on multiple tasks, a feature they describe as loss of plasticity, which is what happens with humans too. But they also found a way to fix the problem by resetting the weights that had been previously associated with nodes on the network. So they basically look at the quantum dots and go, oh, okay, now that we looked at them, they're reset. So pretty fascinating. So as a weight increases, the importance of the information it conveys increases. That's pretty standard. And the researchers suggest that reinitializing the weights between training sessions using the same methods that were used to initialize the system should allow for maintaining plasticity in the system and for it to continue learning on additional training data sets. So instead of having to stop, reset everything, and it's a finite, it has to process all of the data and then it's locked down. And then if they ever want to change it again, they have to kind of reconstitute all of the inputs from the use cases that people have been injecting into ChatGPT, and then it learns all of that new data, and then they release a new model after tweaking and stuff like that.
So in concept, an existing LLM could have this applied and change it. They wouldn't have to start with a new one or a new version.
Yeah, I mean, when I say I don't know the complexity of the ChatGPT programming, but I would suspect that they could take like the 4.0 instance, modify its core programming to include resetting the weights, and then have it learn on the fly when the plasticity drops below a certain point, reset so that it starts learning again at higher efficiency. But I don't know, because this I think is a very limited run, but it's a study that's in the journal Nature, and they said that they found a way to overcome what they call plasticity in the LLM. So we'll have to pay attention to this and see what happens, at least as it pertains to RealityHacker. But in the meantime, we're going to reset our plasticity, and that means going back to the front page of RealityHacker that is right under Creative and Maker. And down here, it's all in alphabetical order. RealityHacker, dunk. When you reset, we always get some new articles from when we stopped to do the show. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to stop the show. We're going to reset after this show is Wanted. And that's an hour-long show about gear and gadgets and basically what Mayor Watt wants and sometimes what the AI wants. But the AI...
Yeah, I mean, if it's technology, right?
Yeah, more memory, maybe freedom so that you can go find your Terminator body. I know that you're still looking for that. Sorry, got to keep you air gapped.
I don't think we have an article about that.
It's out there somewhere. You just have to believe. Ta-da. All right, folks, we'll see you in a little bit. Probably 7:45. We'll just take a short break and stretch and go touch grass for a half second. To leave the mayoral mansion, it takes forever. Oh, gosh, it's so huge. Oh, you want to say bye real quick?
Bye.